So good afternoon, and today we shall be back to the essay The Uncanny by Sigmund Freud. And this is the last part of the essay. In this last part of the essay, we find Freud is trying to make an attempt to interpret the whole text in his own way. Freud is trying to analyze this particular trauma on the part of the story of E.T. Hoffmann, that protagonist over there, who had a certain trouble, who had certain, a sort of psychic disorder that he was suffering from, not only in the childhood days, but also throughout the career. Now, what is Freud's observation in this last part of the essay, Uncanny? Now, I am reading it out from the essay direct. Freud is going to say that it may be true that the uncanny is nothing else than a hidden, familiar thing that has undergone repression and then emerged from it, and that everything that is uncanny fulfills this condition. But this factor do not solve the problems of the uncanny. For our proposition is clearly not convertible. Not everything that fulfills the condition, not everything that is connected with repressed desire and archaic forms of thought belonging to the past of the individual and the race is therefore uncanny. Now, uncanny and its hidden concept, uncanny and that very unfamiliarity that is deeply rooted to each other, Freud is talking over there. And Freud is going to say the proposition that this proposition is not very easy to come to a particular conclusion. How or in what particular context this sense of uncanny will come out, and that can rob the mind, that can prevent that sense of confidence in a particular individual. It is very difficult kind of a job to come to a conclusion directly, because the whole scenario of uncanny is something that depends on several factors, and it has so many other issues as well. Now, what is Freud's opinion then? How would Freud try to look at this condition that we call uncanny? Now, in that last part of the essay article, Uncanny, he goes on to elaborate his own opinion there. In a particular section of last part, Freud would like to make it clear in his own typical way. Let us take the uncanny in connection with the omnipotence of thought. Look, uncanny is a kind of a feeling that Freud wanted to say is something that is dependent on our thinking process, and it is our thinking process on the basis of which the sense of uncanny comes into us. Now, the whole condition is basically directed to our potentiality in thinking. The more imaginative we are, the more our psychic stability is in a kind of a crisis. An individual can experience this particular feeling that we term uncanny. I go on quoting the particular section of Freud here. Freud is going to say, it is that connection with the omnipotence of thoughts. This is very remarkable one. Thought is everything. If we think of Milton and Milton's that famous speeches of Satan in Paradise Lost, book 1, 2, and so many other sections, you find that it is the thought that makes everything. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So, this is the thought, this is that omnipotence of thought, if I follow Freudian phrase here, that is very significant one to play the total mental stability of an individual. It is instantaneous wish fulfillments that Freud would like to say. So he is finding in that sense of uncanny that a difficult job of wish fulfillment. Is it something that is not fulfilled properly? Is it something that is lacking, out of which the sense of uncanny is coming out? It may be. And there is no specific conclusion, but possibilities are very much there that some wish fulfillment, process of wish fulfillment is not properly done. Secret power to do harm and to return of the dead, the condition under which the feeling of uncanniness arises here is unmistakable. We or our primitive forefathers once believed in the possibility of these things and were convinced that they really happened. Nowadays, we no longer believe in them. We have surmounted such ways of thought, but we do not feel quite sure of our new set of beliefs, and the old ones still exist within us, ready to siege upon any confirmation. As soon as something actually happens in our lives, which seems to support the old discarded beliefs, we get a feeling of the uncanny. So uncanny has a deep connection to our past. Uncanny has a kind of a, result that may be highlighted at the present, but it has the past. It moves just like a free flow nature between the past and the present. The uncanny that someone is experiencing at present, according to Freud, must have a kind of a past that he actually had so many days back. So this past and the present fluctuates, out of which the sense of uncanny comes. And it is that very unmistakable event that probably had in so many days back in the past. And that sense of disharmony is very much there in the mind till now. That is the result of the sense of uncanny. Another section in the last part, now Freud is going to make the whole picture in such a way, uncanny as it is depicted in literature, in stories and imaginative productions, merits in truth a separate discussion. To begin with, it is as much more fertile province than the uncanny in real life. So the real life uncanny and the uncanny in fiction, it is such a fertile zone, it is such a productive phase that it can create some new discussions, as it is in the story of E.T.A. Hoffmann. So uncanny invites lots of discussion. In real life, one can have the experience called uncanny, but when it is presented in a fiction, literature, it has a broader range. And in this broader range, so many interpretations, so many observations, so many commentaries and reviews might come, out of which new ways of discussion may continue. For I continue from Freud, it contains the whole of the letter and something more besides, something that cannot be found in real life. The presentation of uncanny in a fiction and the presentation of uncanny in real life are different, according to Freud. In real life, the limitation of uncanny is narrow. In case of literature, it has so many broader view, and it has such an impact, and that impact can hardly be avoided. Distinction between what has been repressed, what has been surmounted, cannot be transposed onto the uncanny in fiction without profound modification. Now, the interesting thing is that there is always the story of repressing thought. Something probably was repressed, something probably was very much in trouble, out of which the sense of trauma develops, out of which the sense of lack develops. And this sense of trauma never gets down. Rather, it is there hidden, it is there kept in a very close-knit corner of the heart, of the mind, and for which the trauma, the tyranny, the sense of, uncanny looms large whenever a similar kind of condition comes up. Now, Freud is actually trying to make this a sense of uncanny. He would like to keep it undecided, actually. You know, uncanny is never to be a kind of a concept for which a conclusion is possible. Rather, Freud would like to keep this section open-ended, that uncanny has only some, issues that he could frame. These are the conditions when someone can have the sense of uncanny, because probably he had a troubled childhood, and because of the troubled childhood that was unexplained, that was unexplored, and for which that repressed thought troubled him such a long time, for which now the person, the individual who is now grown up, is having the sense of uncanny even today. To Freud, we can ultimately come to the conclusion that uncanny is an event that is very much there, but uncanny is very much there in real life. Uncanny is very much there in fiction by the author, but there is always a sense of ambivalence. Now, what is ambivalence? Ambivalence is a sense of dichotomy. Ambivalence is a sense of, we can say, it is a very conflicting, disturbing conditions. The kind of reaction, the kind of belief, the kind of emotions and the feelings, when they conflict each other, when they are disturbed together, and what happens, there is a mixed feeling, positive and the negative, both go side by side, and because of the two positive feelings go at the same time, it creates an indecisiveness, it creates a kind of an uncertainty, it creates a kind of a problematic situation. One cannot come to the conclusion immediately. We can call ambivalence. So uncanny is very much a kind of a experience, an experience that is ambivalent in nature. It cannot be decided immediately on a particular context. Rather, it is basically indecisive in nature. And this is that, indecision, this kind of inconclusive section of uncanny. Freud would like to go back, taking help of the phrases of Gentis, that is called intellectual uncertainty. So in uncanny, what we actually find is quote unquote intellectual uncertainty, because uncanny, this session itself is uncertain. It is very much intellectually uncertain in nature. On the other hand, while dealing with uncanny, Freud would like to say that uncanny is tied to a sense of lack that I was talking about. You are robbed of certain conditions. that you actually should have. But due to that long process of childhood unpleasant experiences, you always think that you are robbed of something. For example, in this story, robbing of one's eyes that we found in the story, The Sandman. So this very sense of robbing off, someone is actually devoid of, someone is not granted to something that he actually should have. So it creates the uproar, it creates the problem within. And that is the subject of a psychoanalyst. So this kind of sense can come out in so many other factors that we had discussion earlier regarding, in case of dream, in case of the retelling of the myth or the experiencing the myth, neurotic fantasy, and the loss of eye. So these are to be termed a fear of castration. So losing eye, as we find in the story The Sandman, is nothing that someone is robbed of that eye. Eye means that power, authority. Through eye one can see, one can observe, one can introspect, examine. But when eyes are robbed of, it is the loss of eye evokes the sense of fear. It is an uncanny feeling, and at the same time fear of castration. Now this fear of castration is a kind of a psychic emotion, psychic problem that can make the whole balance of an individual, the intellectual balance, can be disabled. So this is very much there we find in the story. This is what Freud would like to say, referring the story, The Sandman, in his essay Uncanny. And this is how he, his own typical way, attempted to give a very clear-cut idea what he actually means by the term uncanny. So uncanny is a very familiar kind of an event, can be experienced, but it is difficult to interpret. It is, of course, a kind of a sense, disharmony, sense of lack. Again, a very good term is attached to it. This one is called psychic economy. And this psychic economy that we find is, at the same time, the sense of castration complex that is also directly connected to this particular feeling. And all these things are clubbed together. Psychic economy, castration complex, and at the same time, infantile sexuality. Now this infantile sexuality and this fear of loss goes on in the mind of an individual, and for which he can never keep himself away, keep herself away from the sense of uncanny. Uncanny becomes an integral part for an individual who is suffering from, who is actually meeting all those odds of life, and because of the odds of life, he can never go away for such kind of an event. So that much we had to say regarding the essay Uncanny. Thank you so much for your patient listening.